Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and we have a lot to talk about today. Most notably, Chase Young will start versus the Browns. Not only will he play, not only is he going to get more playing time naturally, but with James Smith-Williams out, Chase Young will officially start versus the Browns. So he's going up in snaps by quite a bit. And then also, Antonio Gibson is out versus the Browns. Benjamin St-Juste and Cameron Curl are questionable. Who do I feel like is more likely to play between the two? And then we're going to, of course, do a full Washington versus Cleveland Browns injury report. We're going to take a look at the Cleveland Browns side as well. And then also the Commanders are being sued by the Hogs, and we should be getting a new mascot reveal in this Browns game as well. So I'm going to run down that whole program and everything that's expected to happen, because there's going to be some giveaways at the stadium and everything. And then we also have some really interesting statistics about this next game, as far as the Commanders' record against AFC opponents, how the Commanders can clinch this weekend, all of the scenarios that will have to take place for us to officially be in the playoffs before we even play the Cowboys the next week. And then also this really scary stat about what happens to teams after they play the 49ers, the week afterwards immediately. The week immediately following. It's scary, man. It's a scary stat. But yeah, man, before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every game day for the Commanders live play-by-play live streams where I break down and analyze everything going on in the game, including this upcoming game against the Browns, which is at 1 p.m. this upcoming Sunday. I will be live streaming the Cowboys game as well the next weekend, and then after we make the playoffs, I'll be live streaming those as well. So definitely pull up for all of those. Make sure you pull up the Laugh and Learn every Commanders game, even preseason games when we get back to that. And without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so first of all, like I already announced, edge rusher James Smith-Williams, who was starting in place of Chase Young since Chase Young has been out for 13 months, is officially out, which means Chase Young will start at defensive end. Now, if James Smith-Williams were fully healthy and was playing against the Browns, I don't think Chase Young would have started. That's what it seems like from Rivera. Rivera already said that Chase Young will get more snaps against the Browns, and he'll actually be in there for like consecutive plays back to back to back, some drives and things like that. But it's only because James Smith-Williams is out that Chase Young will officially start. Now, even though Chase Young is starting and he will be out there snap one, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get as many snaps as Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and Deron Payne. But with the fact that Chase Young was one of our best defensive players, if not arguably the best defensive player on the field against the 49ers, I mean, Trent Williams, first of all, for your first game to be back after 13 months, you have to go against Trent Williams. And then the fact that they had guys come chip Chase Young to help Trent Williams shows a lot of respect for Chase Young. And that makes me even more surprised that Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, and Jonathan Allen weren't eating, because Chase Young was out there balling. Pro Football Focus felt like he was the best player on that field for the Commanders, both offense and defense, by far, by at least like 12 grades of a point. I think Chase Young was like an 87 or something like that. The next guy was like a 75. Like, Chase Young balled out, and so he's earned every additional snap that he's getting this upcoming game. Ron Rivera said he's more confident in himself. He's able to explode off of his knee and not really worry about it. Again, it's been reported that Chase Young has been healthy enough to technically play for a few weeks now, and that's why we kept getting those, oh, he might play, oh, he won't, oh, he might play this week, oh, he won't, because it was more so a mental thing. Can he like be able to trust his knee to be able to push off of it and be as athletic and as explosive as he normally is, and not have to worry about the knee while doing so? And, you know, defaultly putting more pressure and leaning on his other knee to make up for it. And so now that Chase Young has gone out there and shown that, hey, I still got it, I can make plays against the run, I can bat down the pass. He didn't get a strip sack. He did get the sack like I wanted, like I was hoping he would do, but the fact that he went against arguably the best left tackle in football, and they had to use guys to chip against him as well, and he still went out there and performed the way he did and impacted the game the way he did, definitely built some confidence. That's that confidence stuff that I was talking about weeks ago, where I was like, is it worth bringing Chase Young back before the end of this season if he's fully healthy? And that's why I said yes, because things like that, he can take that into these next couple of games, take this into the playoffs, and then especially, most importantly, take this into the offseason. So when he's practicing in training camp, OTAs, all of that, he has a more focused vision of, oh, okay, I'm capable of this, and this is what I need to work on. That stuff's invaluable, man. You can't put a price tag on that, so I'm really happy happy to see Chase Young doing even better than anybody expected, even himself, even Rivera, even us as fans, even me that was very optimistic about his return. So I'm really happy about that. Now moving on to the rest of the practice report, like I already said, you have Antonio Gibson, who's out. He didn't participate in practice at any point this week. None of the guys that are out this upcoming game against the Browns participated in any practice, any way, shape, or form this week. That's including Antonio Gibson, James Smith-Williams, and Sadiq Charles. But then you also have a few questionables that definitely have me worried, because Percy Butler apparently hurt himself in Wednesday's or Thursday's practice because he was good to go Wednesday. He wasn't even on the injury report. Then suddenly Thursday he was limited, and then Friday he was limited. And now he's questionable for this upcoming game. Then you have Cameron Curl, who's been limited all week because he missed last game against the 49ers, and it showed. When Cameron Curl's not out there, our defense allows the most points per game by far than when he is out there. It's a huge difference. By like double-digit points. It's crazy. But I'm a little bit more optimistic about Cameron Curl playing. But again, the fact that he was limited in practice all week does have me worried. But they said at the beginning of the week that he was close to playing against the 49ers. But then again, they kept saying Chase Young was close to play against several teams and didn't end up playing. So we'll see. And then you have cornerback Christian Holmes, the backup, who we don't really even want to see play at all, for real. I like him on special teams, but as of right now, defensively, still got some time to mature and develop there. But he wasn't on the practice report until Friday. Today, he was limited in practice. Now he's questionable to go. So something must have happened in practice today. Then cornerback Benjamin St-Juste, who missed like a whole month of football, came back and played against the 49ers, was clearly beat up, couldn't explode off of his leg. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. He was limited in Wednesday's practice, and then he straight up didn't participate Thursday and Friday. So I'm very worried about him as far as his status against the Browns. I'm definitely more optimistic about Cameron Curl than I am Benjamin St-Juste, but I'm worried about both of them. And then John Bostic went to IR. He didn't participate in practice Wednesday and Thursday, and then they officially put him on IR Friday. And then everybody else, Derek Forrest, Andrew Norwell, Brian Robinson, Wes Schweitzer, Shaka Toney, Chase Young, all of those guys are good to go and were full participants in Friday's practice. Doesn't matter what they did Wednesday or Thursday. On Friday, they practiced in full. They're good to go. There was like a little illness that came around that kept some guys out for maybe like a day or two, but everybody's good now. Like Chase Young missed Wednesday's practice because of the illness. And then you had like Wes Schweitzer and Derek Forrest that missed Thursday's practice. But apparently it was something that just came through the organization and went as fast as it came. And guys were able to all participate in practice Friday. No illnesses reported on Friday. All of them were non-COVID as well. And then the Browns side, I mean, they're good to go. Other than Jadeveon Clowney, who was limited Wednesday, didn't participate Thursday, and then was limited Friday, and is questionable, everybody else is a full go. Now, Amari Cooper and Jedrick Wills, the tackle, limited in Friday's practice, but their game statuses are all good to go. No questionable, no out, no nothing. So the Browns are pretty much fully healthy, man. They have the full arsenal of players, both on defense and offense, which is really interesting, but we're still favored going into this game. A lot of people, including like national analysts and even Vegas, feel like we should win this game, especially since the Browns have nothing to play for and we have everything to play for. But when has that ever stopped us from disappointing our fans? So we'll see how that goes. As far as St-Juste, he had a setback last week. Rivera says, quote, he hopes it turns and turns rapidly because he could be an integral part of what we do, unquote. Issue is that he had a low and mid-high ankle sprain. Part of it healed, but part wasn't healed. Tough to push off and change direction. And that's big for him because his calling card, the whole thing that makes Benjamin St-Juste who he is the fact that he's 6'3" with really long arms, but can change direction better than guys that are normally that size. And if he's not able to push off and change direction, you're going to see more plays like how he got burnt against the 49ers. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen. And then also, as far as Antonio Gibson being out, that means we have a problem at kick returner and running back. As far as kick returner, Ron Rivera was asked if Dax Milne will be the kick returner in Gibson's absence. Rivera said that they've been working a few guys out there and says we'll let you all see. So it sounds like it may be a new returner because, I mean, if it would have been Dax Milne, he would have just straight up said it. Like Dax Milne and punts, it only makes sense that he would do kickoffs, but they do want somebody more explosive on kickoffs. They want somebody safe like Dax Milne who's not going to muff punts on punts, and they want somebody explosive like Antonio Gibson on kickoffs. So don't be surprised that with Gibson out, it's not Dax Milne on kickoffs. It's going to end up being somebody else who may be a little bit more explosive with a little bit of a higher ceiling to potentially change some field positioning. And you never know, maybe it might be a gym that permanently takes over the job and Antonio Gibson becomes another pure running back wide receiver hybrid type of thing and isn't as heavily involved in special teams. And then also, as far as running back goes, Rivera said that Jonathan Williams is a guy that shows up, goes to work, and when he gets the opportunity, takes advantage of it. So with Gibson out, he'll have another opportunity against the Browns. So Jonathan Williams will be running back 2 to Brian Robinson in this upcoming game. Now, and we'll get to see what he does, man. I mean, every time I see him out there, it looks like he's pretty decent, pretty good. He's not Antonio Gibson because he's not Antonio Gibson athleticism, but he does his thing. I don't feel like the game is lost because Jonathan Williams has to go out there. It's a step back from Antonio Gibson, but it's not a huge one. Good vision and all of that, that's really what matters the most. Also, Ron Rivera discussed Wes Schweitzer's low snaps with Carson Wentz and said that it's a matter of Wes raising his target to match up with Wentz's height, and if necessary, Wentz crouching a little bit lower in shotgun to give his center some help. So I'm glad that they've acknowledged the fact that that needs to be worked on and figured out, because those little false snaps things, those errors are really bad, man. I mean, it disrupts the whole play, throws off the timing of everything, and even worst case scenario turns into a turnover. Also, Scott Turner addressed as far as the offense, how it would look with Carson Wentz in for a change. He said, quote, "You're not going to see much difference in what we do. We still want to be physical," unquote, and that's a good thing. My whole thing was with Carson Wentz, we were asking him to drop back like 40 times a game when he was in there. Then as soon as we went to Taylor Heinicke, suddenly now Scott Turner feels like we need to run the ball. And I want to see what Carson Wentz can do in this new and improved offense that depends heavily on the run. And then Carson Wentz can go off a play action, do some deep bombs off of that. And this defense playing at an elite level with Cameron Curl back and things like that. I feel like Carson Wentz deserves the opportunity to see how he looks with that environment. Because as soon as Taylor Heinicke came in, suddenly Scott Turner started to deploy a more run-heavy offense, which has been honestly the primary reason why we've been winning a lot of these games that we've won. And I want to see what Carson Wentz can do in that exact same offense that Scott Turner was calling for Taylor Heinicke. Also, Rivera spoke about Carson Wentz yesterday. He said that Wentz looks more comfortable in the offense and got a little bit of a reset after dealing with a finger injury. So they feel like mentally he was able to just calm down, observe what was going on from the sideline, and become a better player from watching more so than even playing, which is really interesting. Rivera also said that he's more comfortable with what we're doing offensively, threw some nice balls. His decision making was quick in practices this week. Rivera also addressed switching to Wentz. He said, quote, "We're looking for a little bit of a spark, something different," unquote. Really interesting, man. It's also really interesting because Taylor Heinicke was apparently beat up a little bit in practice on Wednesday, so he didn't throw the ball, and Rivera declined to answer if Heinicke will be quarterback number 2 on Sunday. I honestly feel like we should go ahead and throw Sam Howell out there as QB2, but I mean, it is what it is. We'll see. But yeah, Taylor Heinicke took the equivalent of QB4 reps during the open portion of practice, and Rivera said that he didn't throw much at all during the main practice because Taylor Heinicke is physically beat up. So I mean, poor him with the way the offensive line was basically Willie beaming in him from any given Sunday. It was bad. But Rivera said that Heinicke will be QB2 on Sunday if healthy. And it looks like he is, just based on the injury report that we already looked at. I mean, the fact that he isn't even on the injury report at all, I'm assuming Taylor Heinicke will be QB2, but I personally would prefer Howell. But I'm also the same person that preferred to throw Howell out there as soon as Carson Wentz got hurt the first time. Also, another Commanders update. The Commanders have made the following roster moves. They placed linebacker John Bostic on the reserve injured list like I talked about earlier. They signed Dejon Harris from the practice squad, so now he's taking the place of John Bostic on the 53-man roster. We have Jamin Davis, David Mayo, and Dejon Harris. Dejon Harris isn't the most exciting player, but at least he provides some upside, whereas David Mayo, you already know what you're going to get. John Bostic, you already know what you're going to get, and it's usually something mid. So I'm excited to at least see Dejon Harris, who may have a lower floor, out there because he has a higher ceiling. And then also Troy Apke, he's back. Now, even though he's only on the practice squad, he's not on the 53-man roster, so he has no chance of playing against the Browns, but it's just crazy that he's still around and lingering. And then also, the Commanders have given a return to practice designation for tight end Armani Rogers and Tariq Castro-Fields, so I'm really excited about that. Really excited about seeing Armani Rogers potentially being used in this last game against Dallas, especially if, we're going to talk about it soon, if we're able to clinch our playoff spot this week and don't even have to play our starters against the Cowboys, we could throw Sam Howell out there, we can start to see some Armani Rogers, we can see some more Tariq Castro-Fields as well. I really am rooting for us to clinch this playoff spot. First of all, because I just want to make the playoffs. I want the stress to be over. I'm tired of worrying about whether or not we're going to make the playoffs. So that's number one. But number two, I also want to take the time to see like Sam Howell and guys like that go out there, my guy Armani Rogers, and see what they can do for a full NFL regular season game. Not preseason, regular season. Now, granted, the Cowboys may sit their starters as well against us, but it's still a little bit different than preseason. And then as far as clinching, watching. Let's break down the scenario. Shouts out to Michael Phillips. He said this weekend, number one, the Commanders can clinch with a win and losses by Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay. So we need to root for Chicago to beat Detroit. We need to root for Minnesota to beat Green Bay. And we need to root for the Jets to beat Seattle. So as a Commanders fan, we need to root for all of that. We need to root for the Commanders to beat the Browns and for those three teams to lose. Also, the Commanders are eliminated with a loss and wins by Detroit and Green Bay. It's over with at that point if we lose to the Browns and those two teams win. So we'll see. There's a lot of different scenarios in between, but I prefer to pay attention to the most optimistic one. And again, the Commanders can clinch with a win against the Browns and losses by Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay, which are all possible because Green Bay going against Minnesota, Detroit going against Chicago. Do not sleep on Justin Fields. He just has those games sometimes. And then Seattle going against the Jets. And now if Zach Wilson is starting, which I believe he's not, then I'm worried about that Seattle game. And then the Green Bay game, I feel like Minnesota should be able to win that, even though they may not have as much to play for as far as playoff seeding. The Detroit game is the one I'm most worried about. I feel like they have the best chance of beating their opponents this weekend, but we'll see. Also, shouts out to Lake Lewis for bringing up this statistic. He said the Commanders are currently 3-1 against the AFC this season. Our only losses against that Tennessee Titans that Carson Wentz fell on the goal line. That was horrible. With the win over Cleveland, Washington would win 4 games against AFC opponents in the same season for the first time since 1991. I wasn't even born yet. That year, they won 4 games against the AFC as well. And then here's the really alarming statistic that's very scary. After the Seahawks lost to Kansas City, that made it to where all opponents, all teams that have played the 49ers the previous week, the following week, the immediate week following, they lost their game. And now it's 0-13. So every time that a team has played against the 49ers, they have lost the subsequent game right afterwards. Again, the Seahawks losing to Kansas City made it 0-13 for all teams that have just recently played the 49ers. And that is really scary, man. We got to break that curse right there. That is very, very scary, man. Nobody has been able to win a game immediately following playing the 49ers. That is real. I don't know what they're doing to people. And then also, shouts out to JP Finley for pointing this out. Commanders record with Tyler Larson as starting center, 6-1-1. The Commanders record without Tyler Larson as starting center, 1-6. Hopefully we can make it 2-6 because Wes Schweitzer will be starting. Tyler Larson's pretty much gone for the rest of the season. That's a really interesting statistic because that's really similar to the Brandon Sheriff statistics that we were seeing in previous seasons. And then also, this Hogs thing is chaotic, man. Washington said that it's narrowed its choices down to a hog or a dog for the next mascot, and they will reveal the winner this Sunday against the Browns. The Hogs will make their first appearance at FedEx Field since the 2012 season as the Commanders honor the Hogs on Sunday. Joe Gibbs is slated to be there as an honorary captain. The team will also unveil its new mascot at halftime. And at this point with all of this hog stuff, I do agree that it would be weird to choose a dog over a hog. But then again, we already have a dog as like a real life mascot, just like how the Georgia Bulldogs have that bulldog that's always in the cage chilling. We have our own little personal black lab, I believe it is. Really adorable dog. But I feel like they probably appeased to the people that wanted a dog, that wanted Red Wolves. I feel like they were like, here, he may not be the official mascot, but he's on the field and he's part of the team and things like that. So I feel like it's more than likely going to be hog for that reason as well. And again, of course, with all of this hog stuff, I mean, the game theme is fan appreciation. The color guard uniform services University of Health and Sciences. Pre-game, the Hogs recognition with special guest Joe Gibbs. Halftime, the Hogs recognition with team mascot introduction. If it's not a hog, it's going to be really weird, actually. And then the retail item in the game is an oversized logo blanket. The Commanders also announced 2 giveaways for the Sunday's game. Fans will receive a hog nose on their way in and a coaster with the Commanders crest on the way out. It's really cool. But then at the same time, the original Hogs are suing the Commanders right now. Riggins, Jacoby, all of those guys are suing the Hogs. So what's going on? Dan Snyder and the Washington Commanders are trying to profit off of the original Hogs legacy by taking that trademark and associated goodwill and brand equity of the original Hogs. The Commanders are using the original Hogs brand for commercial purposes with no compensation to the men whose blood and sweat equity built the original Hogs brand 40 years ago. Really interesting. And then they also say who's a part of it. O-Line Entertainment LLC, formed by members of the original Hogs, Joe Jacoby, Mark May, John Riggins, Fred Dean, Doc Walker versus Dan Snyder's Washington Commanders. And then there's a whole breakdown as to why this happened, how we got here, and things like that. But that's the general gist of it, and that's just so messy and chaotic. We're over here trying to unveil the new Hogs potential mascot, and we're doing this whole Hogs thing. Joe Gibbs is going to even be there, and the fact that this is going on behind the scenes just shows that we can never do anything 100% right. But I definitely feel for the playoffs. If Dan Snyder is really not compensating those guys for all of that and the whole branding of the Hogs, and he's making money off of it, he's dead wrong for that. So I'm glad that they're stepping up and suing him and all of that. But this is just chaotic, and it's just sad that, again, we can never do anything 100% right. It's always got to be something in the background or something completely in the foreground getting in the way of it. Always some type of drama with us every time. And we're sitting here trying to make the playoffs and all of that type of stuff. It's just so much going on. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Of course, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Really appreciate y'all. Definitely let me know how you feel about Chase Young starting. How do you feel about the potential of us not having James Smith-Williams, Benjamin St-Juste, and Cameron Curl, and Antonio Gibson in this upcoming game? Do you still feel confident that we can be able to beat the Browns? Of course, let me know how you feel about this Hogs thing and all of those stats that I gave you about Commanders versus the AFC, opponents after they play the 49ers, all of that type of stuff. And I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.